Normally when the subject of bacteria comes up, people might get a bit stressed out, germs and bacteria. I remember I had a membership at a gym at the college where I work for a while, and what the manager of the gym emailed me and said, could you please wipe down the equipment after you're done using it and wipe them down with the alcohol and the napkins that are provided. And I emailed her back and I said, that's unhealthy, so I won't be coming back. Canceled my membership. That might sound strange, but you have to remember that the practice of wiping down things and using antibacterial soaps and things like that, um, that tends to create an environment that breeds highly resistant bacteria. We tend to create super strains of bacteria that are antibiotic resistant. Okay, so naturally, I have a gym membership where right now where it's not required that I wipe down things with alcohol or antibacterial residue stuff after I'm using the equipment. Of course, it is polite if you're sweaty to wipe off the equipment when you're done. Okay. Now, if people get bacterial infections from going to the gym, it's probably because they are using antibacterial soap and the microbiome on their skin can't handle the sudden infection of one particular organism or another. Okay, so the interesting thing about bacteria is that there's a certain balance of bacteria, like that there's always a constant war between this bacteria and that bacteria, and they kind of vie for dominance. And if you don't have any bacteria on your skin, you kind of wiped it out, then whatever gets on there suddenly takes over, and that there could be an imbalance, and this can cause a horrible infection. And the worst part of that is that some of these strains of bacteria are now super resistant to antibiotics because we are so busy disinfecting. It's kind of ironic because uh, our effort to get rid of germs or infection or sickness tends to make it sometimes worse. So what does this have to do with magic? Well, in the practice of magic in the modern day, there are many things that we do that used to be considered magic, and now they're more like science. And that would be like the science of biohacking. Okay, so it used to be that people in civilization would begin to get sick because they were inside the city and they were working in unnatural environments. And what would they do? They would go outside the city and talk to the witch who lived on the edge of town. And the witch would say, "Oh, yes, yes, yes. You need to take a bath in the rivers. You need to sleep outside. You need to eat real food again. Stop eating all that grain crap they're giving you in the city. Uh, you need to be exposed to the heat and to the cold, to the elements. All these things will make you healthy again," as though the spirits of nature are magically healing you. Okay, and of course there's various herbs and things like that too. These are all like biohacking things. Of course, these things are all magical, but now eventually science has come along and appropriated them and said, "Wow, they're no longer magical. Now we understand them, and now they're scientific." Okay, so there are many things that we do, like herbalism and alchemy, that are scientific or pseudoscientific. All right, it's breath work, meditation. These things are slowly being hijacked by science or appropriated by science and being rendered non-magical. They will always be magical, as the whole universe is filled with mystery and magic. But and science will come along and pretend to remove the mystery for us. But we know better, don't we? All right. Anyway, so biohacking is essentially the art and the science of giving your body the signals that it needs to become healthier and happier, sort of naturally the way it is happy and healthy. The signals from the environment that it needs. Okay, for example, sunlight. lo and behold, sunlight all the way from the ultraviolet spectrum through the colors, through the infrared spectrum, that sunlight, all of those different wavelengths have effects on you that influence your health and your happiness. And it's quite sickening to follow the advice of a dermatologist who would say, don't get any sun exposure at all, stay indoors, and if you go outside, use a sunscreen. Well, um, and lo and behold, we get really sick because our skin is not making vitamin D from the sun. Not only that, there's some forms of sulfur that we manufacture from the sun as well. It is a form of photosynthesis because our bodies make certain nutrients from sunlight. Okay, not only from sunlight from the ultraviolet, but also from sunlight from the infrared. So biohacking is the act of restoring these sort of natural signals to the body that civilization is now depriving us of. Okay, so chronic illnesses are basically referred to by witches and wizards as the diseases of civilization, because civilization is now giving us this artificial lifestyle which deprives us of certain signals from the environment or nutrients or things from the environment, okay, that would normally keep us healthy. The science comes along and says, all you really need is good food and exercise, right? No, you need all kinds of things from the environment. And here we go, just to go over some of those biohacking things. Okay, this video is mostly about the bacteria, which we'll get to at the bottom of this list. Okay, but just to go over what biohacking is, okay, cold plunges. So in other words, exposing yourself to the cold. That will not give you a cold, by the way. What the thing that causes a cold is the stress response dampening down the immune system, okay? Or vitamin D dropping too low, and then the immune system goes crazy and can't seem to handle a simple rhinovirus, okay? Cold plunges actually will condition the body with cold shock proteins it produces, something like that, right? And the cold plunges do not need to be very cold, by the way. They can be like 72, 73 degrees. That's enough to basically tell your body, it's like, ooh, I'm out in the environment, I'm bathing in the river water, and I need to be resilient in the face of this like onslaught of sudden cold. Not very cold. Yeah, doing it in ice water is unnecessary, okay, but that's fine. You can do that too, as long as you don't have a heart condition. Exposing yourself to heat, and your body also makes heat shock proteins. And the sauna is amazing, okay, especially if it's infrared sauna, okay. Steam room, not so much. Steam room is not very hot. It's the infrared radiation, the infrared energy of the heat that penetrates into your body, and then your body makes intracellular melatonin, which is a very powerful antioxidant. It's probably the most powerful antioxidant that we create. If it's intracellular, it won't put you to sleep. It'll just be an awesome detox for you. So when you go into the sauna, you're not sweating out the toxins, so it feels that way. Okay, you're actually producing antioxidants that cleanse your body and purify it, help you detox much better. Yes, detoxing really is a thing. Forest bathing. Forest bathing is going out into the forest and not only bathing in the ambiance of a natural setting, but inhaling the essential oils that are exuded from the trees and from the fungi and from the soil and who knows what else. Also the bacteria that are all floating in the air, also the pollen, which your body would normally be able to handle and condition itself to. One of the ideas from the hygiene hypothesis is that the reason we have these allergies, one of the reasons we have allergies to pollen is because we're not exposing ourselves to it constantly. So our body is too clean and hasn't conditioned itself to handle this onslaught of various pollens and fungi spores and bacteria from the soil, and who knows all what else that we get from forest bathing. Now, the essential oils that are exuded by forests, in magical ritual, we expose ourselves to those by burning incense. Okay, that's sort of like forest bathing, part of it. Okay, and scientists are exploring how these various essential oils tend to trigger various biological responses in the body. So there really is something to forest bathing as a form of biohacking. Negative ions. Okay, I have several ion generators around the house. The air can take on an electric charge, usually if there's air that's blowing over water, or if there's a waterfall nearby, or if you're by the ocean. That air is like a nutrient, and you absorb it mainly through the nose, and those negative ions penetrate through the body. Watching the sunrise and the sunset. The red light is apparently really good for the body. Okay, and of course you can expose yourself to red light simply by having a red light installed in your home, even if it's bright LED red light. It's the red and the near infrared that trigger your body to regenerate somehow. I'm not sure what the science is behind that, but yes. Sun exposure, okay, exposing yourself to ultraviolet without getting burned. Sunburn is bad. Ultraviolet light otherwise is good for you within moderation. Naturally, it helps your body make vitamin D, but it also helps your skin make various forms of sulfur, which is really good for your circulation. Not only that, but the infrared light is, as we've already said, penetrates through the body, and the infrared will cause your cells to manufacture melatonin. Exercise. That goes without saying. That's a form of biohacking. If we take exercise at face value, we'd say, why would you do that? You're deliberately damaging your body. Why would you do that? So that it can heal and heal stronger. So earthing is another form of biohacking. It simply involves walking barefoot on soil or grass. Also on concrete. Concrete will conduct the electricity. The earth has a negative charge, and those negative ions from inside the earth will flow up into your body. They're actually a powerful antioxidant. An antioxidant really simply produces negative ions in the body, which is detoxing. Okay, and if you don't have a lifestyle where you can walk barefoot on the earth, you can buy various. You can get like earthing bed sheets, or a pad that you can put your bare feet on when you're working at a desk like this, and so your body can actually absorb negative ions directly from the earth through the ground plug of your house. Yes, this really is a thing. So the earth is negatively charged, and those negative ions will flow up into your body. Those electrons will flow up into your body, that is, and they act as an antioxidant. What is an antioxidant? Like if you take vitamin C, basically it's supplying your body with extra electrons so that it can detox. Okay, that's all really an antioxidant does, and there are different kinds of antioxidants, of course. Vitamin C is fairly powerful. Melatonin is extremely powerful. And the electrons that you absorb from the earth are also fairly powerful. Breath holding. So we don't need to say much about that, but of course, pranayama, breath restraint, these things can be very good for you in regards to tuning your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system so you can meditate and do magic. Hyperventilation is a great way to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. And long exhales are a great way to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. Fasting and low carb the low-carb diet, like the keto diet. This is a way of mimicking the fasted state. As you might recall, mystics would fast so they could feel closer to the spirit world. Okay, they would enter a state where their body produces ketones, and instead of burning sugar, it burns ketones for the most part. And that puts your brain into a very calm state of mind. It increases the amount of GABA in your brain, okay, among other things, and makes you really calm, peaceful, and receptive. And it opens up the higher brain function, which makes, I don't know, spirit communication possible. Very strange things like that, right? Sensory deprivation. I remember diving into the springs, into caves. I am a free diver, so I go down into the caves sometimes without any scuba gear. And one of the most striking things about diving into the Florida Springs, into those caves, is how incredibly quiet it is, astonishingly quiet. And when you really do deprive yourself of noise and stimuli, amazing things can happen. And our ancient ancestors or prehistoric ancestors, they didn't live in caves for the most part. No, they did not. Caves were more like sacred places for them where they would go for initiation, because you go deep into a cave and it's so astonishingly quiet and dark that amazing things happen because your mind suddenly lets go of your sensory experience, and then the inner landscape can open up and you begin to enter this sort of astral experience. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't take much to do that. That's why people do these sensory deprivation tanks and things like that. Structured water. So there are, in the liquid form of water, you could say there are two liquid forms of water. Okay. One of them is H2O, and the other form of water is H3O2. And so if you go to a natural body of water, or if you go to the ocean, if the water is structured, it's going to absorb the sunlight and re-emit that light in a turquoise glow, a turquoise color. That turquoise color is not from any plankton or seaweed or anything like that. It's actually the structured water, the H3O2, absorbing light and uh, not bioluminescing, fluorescing. It fluoresces, and it re-emits the light at a different wavelength. It's the curious thing about that turquoise or blue-green color that we see when we go to the ocean or to a spring. That color is very attractive to us. Uh, that's really interesting too, because if you'll notice that the inside of a swimming pool is painted that color, because if you didn't paint it that color, swimming pools would look kind of uninviting. I've seen a swimming pool that was painted white on the inside and that was filled with water, and then it was just sort of a white, clear, translucent white color. It's like it didn't look healthy. Yeah, not nearly as healthy as that turquoise color. That turquoise color, when it's painted inside a pool, is an illusion. The actual healthy water you would get in a natural source like the ocean, if the water is highly structured. It's not always highly structured. Where depends where you're going, and or from a spring. A water that's gushing out of a spring is usually highly structured, and that's why it has that amazing blue-green color. Structured water has an electric charge. It has lots of negative ions, lots of electrons to share with you. And this is one of the reasons why water is so healing from various sources, like magical springs. Okay. It's the magic of the spring is that it's one of the things that's magical about it is the structured water, which conveys electrons to your body, which you just absorb straight through the skin, kind of like getting a massive shot of vitamin C and uh, other things that purify the body. Mineral baths and mud baths. One of the things I'm exploring right now, since my ancestry is from Northern Europe, that's very volcanic, that area. There's lots of silica in the water. And here, where I live in South Florida, there's not very much silica in the water because it's not a very volcanic area. So I was doing horsetail herb, which has a lot of silica in it, and I've now just recently switched over to bamboo extract, so I can get silica um, from an herbal source. And the silica that I would normally get through the water would be really good for me, for my joints as I get older, things like that, right? Since my ancestry is from a volcanic region, I should probably get more silica in my water or just silica in my diet. And so I have some joint pain now as I get older. Um, I'm 57 now. So we'll see if the joint pain will go away because I'm getting more silica in the diet. That's the benefit. One of the benefits of these mineral baths and mud baths. Okay, you can also get other nutrients from other minerals from the water. These are minerals that we would normally get all the time because we were out in nature and we were dirty and we were digging in the soil, digging up roots and tubers and things like that, and always absorbing these minerals through all kinds of avenues. And now we live indoors and we're very clean, and so we don't get a lot of minerals. And one of the minerals that we're really deprived of is magnesium. Almost everybody is deficient in magnesium, and probably potassium too. Potassium is also becoming a deficiency that many people have, which can be very serious. Actually, these things can be very serious, especially as you get older. And of course, herbalism. Herbalism is a way to expose yourself to various things that you normally would get from nature if you were living out in the open. Since we're not doing that, we have to go seek out various herbal supplements. For instance, the horsetail, or even things like ashwagandha or the bamboo extract that I'm doing now. And then fermented foods. Now we're coming to the bacteria. So fermented foods were very magical because it really is quite magical to take some milk and then take some of the yogurt from a previous batch, put that in the milk and put some fiber in there, some food for the bacteria in there, and suddenly it transforms into this sort of pudding. And it only takes about 12 hours or so to do that. Okay, wow, what's happening here? It becomes a sort of rich, um, good tasting, sort of sour tasting food that's really good for you. Okay, and of course, what you're doing is you're deliberately infecting yourself with bacteria to get healthy. Because our war against germs is decimating the healthy bacteria that exists on our skin and inside our gut, in our large intestine mostly, but also in our small intestine. Apparently, there are bacteria all throughout the body that not only are helpful, but that we need to survive and be strong, healthy, and happy. Okay, so if you wonder why people are getting more and more depressed and more anxious and more nervous, or anxiety is at an all-time high, you might want to look at the bacteria that's being eradicated from our bodies by a food system that is contaminated with antibiotics, and of course by our obsession with killing germs and taking antibiotics uh, and wiping down gym equipment after we're done with it to kill all the germs, because our attitude is that all germs are bad. How many bacteria are actually harmful? Uh, 1/10 trillionth of a percent of all the species of bacteria on the planet, 1/10 trillionth of a percent are harmful to us that we know of, or are considered harmful. Okay, and about something under 1% of them are theorized to be helpful to us, and the rest of them are completely harmless to us. Most bacteria, when they evolve so that they can exist inside us without causing any trouble. Why would they want to kill the host? Why would the bacteria want to kill the host? Because that would kill the bacteria. So a bacteria will evolve so that it can just exist. Okay, but there are just a few bacteria that are problematic, and they're probably in a state of evolving to become less and less harmful too, so that they can survive better without killing us. All right, so usually if we have an infection, it really involves an imbalance of bacteria, because if we have a good balance of various microbes on our skin and inside our bodies, the microbes tend to fight each other, and the good microbes will get rid of the ones that are harmful to us naturally, or they'll diminish them to such a degree that they're basically, of no harm. However, if we take antibiotics and we wipe out most of our bacteria, suddenly we are vulnerable to the bad ones, and then we are slightly susceptible to getting a really bad infection, unless we get lots of good bacteria back into the body that can now maintain the right ratio, the right balance, whatever that is. I'm sure there's many different combinations of bacteria that are perfectly healthy for us. Okay, we're going to be talking about one way to restore a really good, healthy balance of bacteria. That's mainly what this video is about. But I had to talk about what biohacking is first and how magical biohacking is. MRSA, you've probably heard of that. MRSA is simply a type of bacteria that is super resistant to antibiotics, and it has been created by our crusade against germs. If you want to get MRSA, go to a hospital, because that's usually where it's being inadvertently bred by all the obsessive cleanliness that goes on in hospitals. Then that also tends to breed super powerful strains of bacteria. Okay, not necessarily ones that you can't fight off. Okay, because if you have a healthy balance of all kinds of bacteria on your body, you can probably fight off these really resistant strains, no problem. But if you already are super clean, you've taken antibiotics and most of the bacteria has been killed for a while, then an MRSA can get in there, and if it happens to be a harmful strain of bacteria, there's no other bacteria to fight it off, and it will take over, and it can be really bad. Okay, because then if they try to use an antibiotic against it, the antibiotic won't work, because they've already been using antibiotics against it, and they have created a monster, pretty much. Anyway, most bacteria are harmless. Almost all of the bacteria that we run into on the planet are harmless. Okay, and I guess about 1% of them or so are quite helpful to us. There's probably about 100,000 different species of bacteria are actually helpful to us. That's just an estimate, because this is a relatively new field. Discovering that you might want to consider that if we ever colonized another planet, it might be interesting to see how quickly we would die, because that planet doesn't have the bacteria and the fungi and the viruses of Earth. And we need a mix of bacteria and virus and fungi in order to live. We do not exist as separate units. We rely on being infected by bacteria and viruses and things like that. And our bodies create health and happiness from these things. The bacteria in our body, among other things, they create hormones and neurotransmitters. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the bacteria in your gut and how they not only keep you healthy, but also make you happy and calm and serene. Okay, and if you don't have certain bacteria, then you have trouble being calm and serene and happy. Depression sets in, anxiety sets in. Okay, gut issues happen. All right, so serotonin is a neurotransmitter that is associated with being happy. So if you take an antidepressant, it usually will help increase the amount of serotonin in your brain, which might make you sort of happier. Okay, if you know what that's like to be on an antidepressant, the kind of happiness it produces is really weird. Okay, but that's kind of the serotonin effect. Okay, if the serotonin in the brain increases, it's no guarantee it's going to make you happier, but it usually does for many people. Okay. Um, GABA, I had to write this down. GABA is an abbreviation for gamma aminobutyric acid. That is a something your brain produces that calms down your nervous system. It calms down that anxiety. If you're on a keto diet, a healthy keto diet, the GABA, the amount of GABA in your brain is relatively high, and that means you tend to be really calm and chill. You can handle stress. That's the main reason that I do a ketogenic diet. I'm usually in ketosis. It tends to keep me calm and happy and serene. Dopamine. Now, the bacteria in your gut also make dopamine, which is like the motivation hormone. Uh, it's uh, I think it's both a hormone and a neurotransmitter, if I'm not mistaken. And just willingness to get out of bed in the morning is a dopamine thing. Okay, and there are various things we can do to increase dopamine, and that is we can drink coffee, we can drink alcohol, we can eat sugar. These will spike our dopamine. Okay, and the interesting thing is if you are on a low carb diet, you don't eat any sugar, essentially, right? Um, what you'll notice is that once you're in ketosis and you don't need the sugar anymore, if you do have some sugar, you'll notice that the motivation to have that same exact food again is really strong. It's amazing because you get a spike of dopamine from that sugar, and then you want that food again. It's astonishing how powerful that is. And then, of course, you get hooked. Most of the people that you meet are addicted to sugar. They're addicted to that dopamine spike. And most of the people who try to do a ketogenic diet are not able to. They can't seem to kick the habit. They always seem to find a way to eat something that is not not a keto food. They'll say that they're in keto, but then you go out to eat with them, and then you see what they're eating, and you're like, nope, yeah, you're hooked. And then for our purposes here, the last one, oxytocin, is both a hormone and a neurotransmitter. Oxytocin is very interesting. You could say dopamine is a happiness hormone. That's a motivation type thing, right? That's like, I want to go do something now. But what we're finding is that dopamine is sort of like a more selfish happiness thing. It's like, I want to do this for me. I want to succeed for me. I'm ambitious. Um, and oxytocin is different. It's more like a hugging hormone neurotransmitter. It's also like a family vibe. It's a lovey-dovey thing. It's tribal, and it will get you to even sacrifice yourself for another person. This is a different kind of happiness. Oxytocin is so powerful that it can even cause a psychopath to have feelings of warmth and affection for others a little bit. Yeah, so even a psychopath can feel sympathy for somebody else if the amount of oxytocin is increased sometimes. And the amount of oxytocin that our bodies have is not very high because we are missing, apparently, we're missing a type of bacteria in our gut that produces a lot of it. Okay, the bacteria in our gut that we are missing has been wiped out by antibiotics. And so it's estimated that like 95% of people in the United States do not have any Lactobacillus reuteri in their gut. And Lactobacillus reuteri is wonderful because it makes GABA, which keeps you calm and serene, but it makes oxytocin, which is a lovey-dovey hormone and neurotransmitter. Okay, and so if you want to get these things back, you want to get your calmness and serenity back. You want to get those feelings of connectedness to others and the willingness to sacrifice yourself on behalf of others. You want to get those feelings back. You want the narcissism. You want to stop being so narcissistic. um, the oxytocin. You want to get that hormone slash neurotransmitter back up to proper levels in your body. Okay, Lactobacillus reuteri dramatically improves the gut health, which means you absorb food better. You get a lot more out of your food. It produces loving emotions. Now you have to be careful though. It's the kind of loving emotions could also be emotions of patriotism, and that kind of tribal, take care of your own family, take care of your own countrymen, that sort of close-knit feelings that we have with others, to people who are immediately near us, right? That's apparently oxytocin has a lot to do with that. It helps with deep sleep. Okay, one of the hacks for sleep is basically uh, people who have trouble getting enough sleep. It's kind of silly, really, because the main cause of that is simply artificial light. And so if you remove all the blue light from your world at night, you will get sleepy. Your body will make melatonin, the melatonin outside of the cells, which will then make you sleepy. Okay, it's such a simple fix, but we can't seem to stop staring into our phones, which is a dramatic amount of blue light. Even if you use that sort of amber tint or whatever, it's not good enough. You really need to block all the blue light at night. Okay, that's what we used to get. During the day, we have blue sky and sunlight, which has a lot of blue in it, which stimulates the body to stay awake. And lo and behold, now we have electric light, which has a lot of blue in it, especially if it's LED, which stimulates us to stay awake. Okay. So if you block the blue light at night, you will get sleepy. You will not have insomnia anymore. Okay. But another thing that can encourage you to sleep is the oxytocin. So if you were somehow to restore Lactobacillus reuteri to your body, to your gut, then you would be able to sleep better. Okay. Not only would you be able to sleep better, but you'd also have lovey-dovey feelings for other people. You'd feel connected to everybody around you, more or less. You would be more interested in sacrificing yourself on behalf of others rather than just looking out for yourself. Okay, you still have dopamine, so you can still look out for yourself and do selfish things. But you also have the oxytocin, which makes you interested in being a team player and helping others and working together, holding hands. So I'm going to show you how you can get this miraculous bacteria back. Okay, this bacteria, Lactobacillus reuteri, is very vulnerable to antibiotics. Yeah, so and antibiotics, there's still a lot of antibiotics that taint our food supply, especially in the United States. There are regulations about it, so there shouldn't be much residue in anything you eat for antibiotics. Okay, but it's still there, and Lactobacillus reuteri is very vulnerable to standard antibiotics, and that's why it's been wiped out from our guts, basically. So in order to put it back, we can culture it, we can grow it in the kitchen in a form of yogurt, okay? And then you eat about 2 tablespoons a day. Well, tw 2 tablespoons, two tablespoons twice a day. Let's say morning and night. And this is what the yogurt looks like. Technically, it's not yogurt because Lactobacillus reuteri is not the type of bacteria that normally constitutes yogurt. Okay, but well, this is a type of yogurt then. In order to make this stuff, you need a quart of half and half. You need some inulin. Okay, pure inulin, nothing with flavoring or anything like that. Get pure inulin, and then of course you want to buy Lactobacillus reuteri in capsule form. Okay, which you can easily get on Amazon. Okay, these little picks I got here, I did make this the first time without using organic half and half, and it worked just fine. But I would recommend using organic half and half. And make sure it is ultra pasteurized because you can make better yogurt if the half and half is ultra pasteurized. That means it's been heated. Works better that way. The inulin is really important, and of course you have to have the strain of bacteria that we're trying to produce here. The reason you really can't just take this supplement, you take the capsules, there's only about 5 billion organisms per capsule. Okay, if you really want to get the benefit of Lactobacillus reuteri, you've got to take like 1 trillion bacteria in the morning and 1 trillion bacteria at night to really repopulate your guts with this stuff. Okay, and the only way to do that is to create your own yogurt and really culture the stuff. Okay, and this is really easy to do. Okay, now you could buy a yogurt maker, which is like $100, which is probably the best thing to do. I don't have one. And I don't have a lot of counter space in my kitchen, so I didn't want to buy a yogurt maker. So I had to experiment for a while to come up with a way to create an environment for this yogurt to grow that is warm but not too hot. Okay, because Lactobacillus reuteri requires only like body temperature, pretty much like 99 degrees in order to grow. And if it gets too hot, it won't grow. Okay. Now most yogurt will grow in about 12, 15 hours or something like that. Lactobacillus reuteri requires about 36 hours, really. No more, no less. Right around 36 hours, right? You really should set a timer, okay? If you don't grow it long enough in that temperature, there aren't going to be many organisms, and if you grow it too long, then many of them are going to die. It's going to taste funny. All right. So here's what I did. Instead of buying a yogurt maker, I used my crock pot. This is a small crock pot. And I took one of those casserole heating pads. It's one of those heating pads you can get, so you can set a casserole dish on top of it. Okay, don't just use a towel because you don't want to burn down the house. And you want to put the crock pot on warm. Make sure it really is on warm, not hot, not high, not low, but just warm. And that warm setting is still too warm. It's still too hot for the Lactobacillus reuteri to grow properly. So I experimented with this to create an environment that was not quite so warm. I placed the heating pad on top of the crock pot like this. There's nothing in the crock pot. I just placed that on top. And then I put a bowl on top of that heating pad, glass bowl, large one like this. And then I put another heating pad inside that with like one of those little round toots, like a pot holder. Okay, so another heating pad inside, and then I put a smaller bowl, glass bowl, on top of that heating pad. And then I was touching that to see how warm it got over about an hour or so, and it was probably about 100 degrees, 99 degrees. It didn't feel much warmer than my hand, so it was like, oh, this is perfect. Okay, and then when you have your mixture in there, okay, then you could just put a plate on top of it to cover it. Okay, that keeps it from drying out while the culture is growing over those 36 hours. Okay, and so what you do is you combine 1 tablespoon of inulin with a little bit of the half and half. and you just mix it up and make a little paste. And then you take one of the capsules of the Lactobacillus reuteri and you just open it up, and then just dump the little powder in the mixture, mix it up, okay? And then you pour the rest of the quart of half and half into the bowl, stir it, and then you place that smaller bowl inside the larger bowl, okay, and then cover it with the plate. And then set a timer. You can use a smartphone. Set a timer for 36 hours. Okay, and right at 36 hours, you will turn off the heat, and you can put the smaller bowl with the plate on top of it. You can put that right in the fridge. Okay, and then in the refrigerator, it'll cool down, and it'll stop the bacteria from reproducing any further. Okay, of course you want to stir it. When you stir it for the first time, there's going to be some whey that floats up to the surface, so like a liquid, and that's no problem. You just stir it up. It's the same thing you see when you have a standard yogurt from the store, like the liquid floats to the top, and you just stir it up, right? And you just do 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons in the morning, two tablespoons at night. That's going to give you about 1 trillion bacteria per dose. Yeah, and then the effects are actually pretty astonishing. Within a day, you'll start to notice effects. Okay, it's quite amazing. You'll notice that you're stronger at the gym. You notice that within a week or so that your muscle tone is coming back. Your skin's looking better. It's this stuff does a lot, and not only that, but you have lovey-dovey feelings for people around you. So it's a kind of happiness that we seem to be lacking nowadays because we don't have a lot of the oxytocin. Okay. That being said, it's important to keep in mind that our happiness or our mood is not dependent necessarily upon the neurotransmitters and hormones. Okay, that's what reductionistic scientists would say. But it's more like you might say the universe itself is inherently happy and radiant and joyful, and it's trying to find ways to express that biologically, okay? And in order to express that radiant, happy, joyful, whatever that is, certain ingredients need to be in place in your biology, okay? So this is like you restoring those ingredients that are needed for your biology to become a good vehicle for happiness and lovey-dovey feelings, and and of course the motivation you get from dopamine. All these things can now function better as you are now more healthy and you have the proper balance of bacteria and neurotransmitters and hormones in place that restore you to the way that we evolved to function. Okay, so I gave you a lot of information here, a lot of stuff about biohacking. If you're going to get into biohacking, like the various things I talked about, you must do research, okay? And I'm astonished that people do procedures like this. I'm astonished at how unscientific people can be. Like sometimes, um, you must be rigorous with your science, okay? When you do things like this, I've already done a couple of things that have done some damage to my body because I was not careful enough doing this various biohacking stuff. Okay, for instance, in herbalism, I make tinctures in herbalism, but I once burned the inside of my mouth really badly by using Everclear, and I didn't dilute my tincture afterwards with water because the Everclear is very strong. I had no idea that alcohol was so harmful to the inside of the mouth. So I learned a hard lesson there. It was very painful. Okay, and there are other things you can really screw yourself up if you're not careful. You must be scientific. You must do your research. Okay, be careful with this stuff. And even with this, okay, like I said, you want to use a heating pad, not a towel. So don't burn down the house. Okay, so you Make sure you follow directions at first. Yes, you can change things later on if you maintain a scientific mindset. Okay, you can start tweaking things and experimenting. Got to be careful though, right? So yeah, this brings into magic the more alchemical side of it, the more scientific side, and your kitchen becomes sort of a laboratory for you. You can become somewhat of an amateur herbalist and begin exploring the various natural supplements that you can use, okay? Or even the various electric light bulbs that you can use to give your body the signals that it craves in order to be healthy and happy and complete again. Okay, instead of deprived of these signals from the environment that we normally would have been getting if we were living out in nature, out in the open. All right, so I hope that all makes sense. So until next time.